If you dropped a scorpion into a bucket of water right now and forgot about it for 2 days, you'd come back and it would still be alive. Some species could survive a third day, a fourth. A few, under the right conditions, can go a full 6 days without taking a single breath. No gills, no trick. It just stops needing air. And the same mechanism that lets it do that is the same one that's kept scorpions alive through 5 mass extinctions, longer than trees have existed on land. This is how an animal learned to turn breathing itself into something optional. To understand why a scorpion can do this, you have to understand how old the design actually is. In 2020, paleontologists re-examined fossils pulled from a quarry in Wisconsin back in 1985. They'd sat in a university collection for over 3 decades before anyone looked closely. When they finally did, they realized they were looking at the oldest scorpion ever found, a creature called Paraeoscorpio venator, dated to roughly 437 million years old. That places it in the Silurian period, a time when almost all animal life was still confined to the ocean. What makes that fossil remarkable isn't just its age, it's what's inside it. Researchers could still make out the internal structure of its respiratory and circulatory systems, and those structures were almost identical to the ones scorpions carry today. The blueprint for breathing optionally was already in place before scorpions had even fully committed to living on land. It may have evolved as a transitional feature, something that worked underwater and then got repurposed for air. In other words, the 6-day breath hold isn't a recent adaptation. It's a 440-million-year-old survival system that's been quietly running, mostly unchanged, the entire time scorpions have existed. Every other detail about scorpions, the stinger, the pincers, the venom has been fine-tuned by evolution over and over. This particular trick was apparently good enough the first time. So the real question isn't, how do they do this? It's why did they need to, and the answer says a lot about what it actually costs an animal to breathe. Start with the hardware. Scorpions don't have lungs like we do. They have book lungs, 4 pairs of them, stacked in thin folds inside the abdomen, like the pages of a small book. Each fold is lined with tissue that lets oxygen pass into the bloodstream through simple diffusion. There's no pump, no diaphragm, no active pulling of air. It's a passive system. Air gets in through small openings on the underside of the abdomen called spiracles. And this is the first key mechanism. A scorpion can close those spiracles completely, seal them shut. No air in, no air out on command. That alone doesn't explain 6 days, though. Holding a door shut doesn't create more oxygen behind it. The second and more important mechanism is what happens to the scorpion's metabolism once those doors close. Factor 1. The oxygen reserve. Between the air trapped in the book lungs and oxygen stored directly in body tissue, a scorpion is carrying a small onboard air tank the moment it seals itself off. It's not much, but for an animal that barely uses any of it, a little goes a long way. Factor 2. The metabolic shutdown. This is the real trick. A scorpion at rest already has one of the lowest metabolic rates of any land animal. Some studies put resting scorpion metabolism far below what you'd expect for an arthropod its size. When it seals its spiracles, it drops that rate even further. No unnecessary movement, no elevated heart activity, nothing but the bare minimum needed to stay alive. It's less like holding a breath and more like powering a device down to standby mode. Factor 3. What this buys them. That shutdown isn't just useful underwater. It's a general-purpose survival tool. Consider the environment most scorpions actually live in: hot, dry, and unforgiving. Every time an animal breathes in a desert, it loses water vapor along with it. Water is the scarcest resource in that environment. So an animal that can simply stop breathing for extended stretches is also an animal that stops losing water during the worst heat of the day. The same sealed-off state that lets a scorpion survive a flooded burrow also lets it wait out a heat wave without losing moisture, sit motionless near a predator without any telltale movement or breathing rhythm to detect, and shrug off short exposure to airborne toxins by simply not drawing them in. Factor 4. The limits. This isn't unlimited. The 6-day figure represents an upper bound for certain species under favorable conditions, generally cooler water, which slows metabolism even further. Warmer water speeds everything back up and shortens survival time. And it isn't breathing underwater in any real sense. The scorpion isn't extracting oxygen from the water around it. It's running on a battery, and eventually the battery runs out. Push it too far, and it drowns like anything else would. So the full picture isn't scorpions can breathe underwater. It's they carry a small emergency air supply. They can shut their body down to near idle, and that combination happens to let them outlast almost any short-term threat their environment can throw at them: water, heat, or danger. Here's the part that surprises most people. This ability doesn't stay confined to the wild. It follows scorpions into buildings. In parts of the southwestern United States and similar climates worldwide, scorpions are known to turn up in swimming pool filters and occasionally household plumbing. The instinct most people have is to flush the problem away. That instinct doesn't work the way you'd expect. Because a scorpion can seal itself off and idle for days, being pushed into a pipe full of water isn't necessarily a death sentence. It can survive the trip and the standing water on the other end, at least for a while, which means the problem people think they've gotten rid of hasn't actually gone anywhere. This flips the intuitive story on its head. We assume drowning is fast and absolute for a land animal, that water is an immediate kill switch. For most insects and arachnids, that's roughly true. For scorpions, water is closer to a countdown timer than an off switch. The same biology that reads as fragile desert creature in a textbook is, in this narrow scenario, more durable than the mammal reading about it. It's worth being precise here too. This is not the scorpion deciding to hold its breath the way a diver does. It has no awareness that 6 days is its limit. It's an automatic physiological response. Spiracles close, metabolism drops, and the clock starts. Whether the scorpion is in a flooded burrow after a rare desert storm or stuck in a U-bend under your bathroom sink. The behavior evolved for one context and simply also happens to work in a completely different one it was never designed for. That's the myth worth correcting. The 6-day figure isn't a party trick. It's a byproduct of a much older, much more general survival strategy, one built for drought and heat, that happens to also cover flooding almost as an afterthought. Picture a flash flood moving through a stretch of desert, the kind of rare, sudden storm that can dump more rain in an hour than the region sees in months. Scorpions live in burrows just below the surface, and a flood like this can fill those burrows with water in minutes, far faster than the scorpion could dig or climb its way clear. For almost any other burrowing arthropod in that space, this is a death sentence. For the scorpion, it's the exact scenario its book, lungs, and metabolic shutdown were built for. Spiracles seal. Movement stops. The animal effectively disappears from its own body's demand for oxygen and waits. The flood recedes. Often within hours or a day or two, deserts drain fast. There's little vegetation to hold water back. By the time the ground dries out, the scorpion has usually spent only a fraction of its 6-day reserve. It reopens its spiracles, metabolism ramps back up, and it resumes hunting that same night as if nothing happened. Compare that to almost any other strategy a small desert animal could use against sudden flooding: outrunning it, outdigging it, finding higher ground. All of those require energy, speed, or luck. The scorpion's strategy requires none of those. It requires doing less, more efficiently, than almost anything else alive. That's the quiet punchline hidden in this one number. A 6-day breath hold isn't really about breath at all. It's what happens when an animal gets extremely good at needing almost nothing. Zoom back out, and the 6-day number stops being a piece of trivia and starts looking like a design philosophy. Nature usually rewards animals that can do more, run faster, see further, react quicker. Scorpions found a different lever: doing less, on command, better than almost anything else on Earth. That's arguably the more durable strategy. Speed and strength have to be maintained, fed, and constantly outcompeted by something faster or stronger. But the ability to simply switch off and wait doesn't really have a competitor. It doesn't decay, doesn't need to evolve further, doesn't get outpaced by an arms race, because it was never a race to begin with. So the next time someone tells you a scorpion can hold its breath for 6 days, the more interesting fact isn't the number. It's that the animal holding the record for outlasting a crisis is the one that figured out, hundreds of millions of years ago, that the safest move is often just to stop. Sometimes survival isn't about what you can do, it's about how little you actually need.